Hey guys, it's Abby. I'm back with another video, and today I will be doing a book review on Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I recently finished this book and it had been so hyped on BookTube, and it is not normally something that I would pick up just because of the format of the book. If you are not aware, it is told through case files, live chats, etc., and it is beautiful to look at. I will give that so much credit. There are some pages in here that are legitimately like works of art. I suggest going into this book a little bit blind, but if you would like a brief synopsis, it follows two teenagers who live on a planet. In this sci-fi universe, there are different colonies on planets and things like that. I don't know, that part is a little unclear to me. What happens is that these two teenagers are dating, and the day that they break up, they have a big blow-up fight, they break up, their planet gets attacked, or their colony on whatever little planet they're living on gets attacked by a huge corporation, and they have to try and escape. Eventually they escape. That is not a spoiler, that's just something that happens, you know that. And they are on these ships trying to run from whoever is trying to kill them, everybody who escaped the planet. And it follows these two teenagers as they communicate through chats, as well as captains and colonels and important people on the ship. And you read a lot of their case files and emails and things like that too. So my initial thoughts in the first 100 pages was that I did not understand what the hype was about. And when I say 100 pages, I know that sounds like, oh wow, like that's pretty far into the book, but when it's told in such a strange format, that's not a lot of reading. I was just not getting that into it, and I wanted to like it as much as everybody else, but I just hadn't gotten there. And so I kept going because I was like, well, I gotta power through. It's a huge book. I'm sure at some point it'll pick up. About 300 pages, I was hooked. The climax hits. Ooh. The climax hits, and I'm hooked. It gets crazy. Could not believe what was happening. It got crazy, and I loved it. I think this is a great sci-fi book to start with if you're trying to get into sci-fi. Like, that's kind of where I was at with it, was that I'm not that into sci-fi. I've read barely any sci-fi at all. This is a great one to start with because you are reading case files and things like that, and you're not reading into some huge new world. And I was like confused in bits and pieces, just trying to figure out what I was reading at some points, where I was like, okay, I need to take a step back and try and figure out what's going on here. But I loved the characters eventually. At first I was kind of like, and then it kicked off, and I got more attached to them, and I started to really, really care about them. Especially Ezra. I really, really, really loved him throughout the whole book. I thought he was so sweet. And Katie is so not your typical female protagonist, just because she's very spunky, kind of hostile, and you get her being kind of the brooding type, and then Ezra is very emotional and loving. And I thought it was really cool because they didn't follow like typical gender roles where the girl's all smushy and like can't take care of herself, and the dude's, you know, big macho guy saves her. It's gets kind of swapped, you know, like she kind of takes care of things. She knows how to handle herself. She does not need a man in her life. I thought that the characters were very, very endearing. I thought that even though they're in this huge high-stress situation, like, they still managed to have a little bit of their romance, but it was not stupid. You know, when you're like, and reading a dystopian or sci-fi or fantasy, and you're like, okay, your world is literally ending and you're focusing on romance right now, like, is that really realistic? But I feel like in this, like, when they did talk about their relationship, like, it was something that real teenagers would say if they were in the midst of a crazy sci-fi apocalypse. Like, it just made sense to me. I liked that we kind of got in the heads of other people on the ship, not necessarily just these two characters. We saw their friends, their captains, their bosses, their parents, like a little bit of that. And like, you're never really in anyone's head because you're just reading the case files, but you really feel like you are. You feel like you're watching these characters. I think this would be an awesome movie just being able to see this played out, like I felt like reading it, it felt like I was watching a movie in my head. I think that'd be really, really interesting. I know that the second book is coming out sometime this year, and I'm really pumped because it ended in a cliffhanger in a way that you would not expect. So if you're reading this book and can't seem to get through the first 200 pages, like please keep reading. Just handle 100 more pages and you will be sucked in because it was so good. And not only all that, but I think the cover is gorgeous. And when you take off the dust jacket, I just hit myself in the face. Something else that made me kind of hesitate with this book is that it is written by 2 authors. And typically when I read a book that is written by 2 authors or co-wrote, I struggle with it just because I'm like, I feel like I can tell who wrote who and you can sense the different writing styles, or you can feel like the pull of them going back and forth. I didn't feel that here. I thought that the authors worked very well together to create a very cohesive story. They are both sci-fi writers of their own. I haven't read anything by either of them, but it says that Amy Kaufman wrote the Starbound trilogy and Jay Kristoff wrote the Lotus War trilogy, so it seems like they know what they're doing. And I really enjoyed this. I thought this was totally worth the purchase. I was intimidated by the size, but I flew through it in just a couple of days, and this was probably my favorite read of the month. I would probably give it 4.5 out of 5 stars, pretty much 5 stars. Like on Goodreads, I'll put 5 stars. But I mean, it's not like my favorite book in the entire world just because it took me a while to get into it. But amazing, amazing ending. You know when you read a book and you're like, holy cow, who could have possibly thought of that kind of storyline? That's kind of how it felt, where I was like mind blown. I thought it was really, really cool and interesting and fun to read. I like this book a lot. It's pretty. And it looks nice on my shelf with all my other books. So I am very excited to pick up the second one whenever it comes out. Hopefully soon. I know that this one was just released, so I'll probably have to wait a while. If it only gets better from here, then I'm happy. I'm good. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review of Illuminae. I will see you next video. I don't know if I had said enough for this.